Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Lisa Schrader, and I am the director of the Mercy Corps AgriFin programs based out of our hub office here in Kenya. And it's really our pleasure to launch our 5th annual learning event. For those of you who haven't joined our learning events in the past, this is a really critical time every year for us, to bring our partners together, our ecosystem stakeholders together to review what we've done, what we've learned. And this particular year is particularly interesting and important to us because it's the end of a 6-year cycle of AgriFin work with the MasterCard Foundation and also with the Gates Foundation. And we're getting ready to launch another 4 years of AgriFin. So this is a really important moment for us to begin to consider what we've learned with our partners and also to celebrate the innovation that's happened. And we'd love to take you through the last year of our work. For those of you who aren't familiar with the AgriFin programs, with the Mercy Corps AgriFin programs, this represents about a 10-year body of work at Mercy Corps, a focused program group that has had many donors, many supporters, many partners, worked in many countries. But essentially the idea of AgriFin is to work side by side with organizations that are looking to design, test, and scale digital services for farmers. We're really looking to reach big numbers. We're looking to bring high impact services to farmers across digital channels. It's our core hypothesis that digital can offer a breakthrough pathway to reaching smallholder farmers around the world. Smallholder farmers are the most underserved group living in poverty in the world. And in Africa, they feed 80% of the population. So, for Mercy Corps as a development organization, as a humanitarian organization, this focus on smallholder farmers and harnessing technology so that more organizations can reach them, so that farmers can benefit from more services is core to AgriFin's work. So our work focuses on smallholder farmers, and we've been striving to reach 40% women across everything that we do. Our core focal countries over the last 6 years have been Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, Ethiopia, and Nigeria. We've learned a lot of great lessons across these countries, very different contexts. So moving forward, we will be working in a much broader context. All geographic boundaries are off. And so we're looking forward to working with you as our stakeholders in the audience. Over the last 6 years, we've worked with more than 150 partners to help them design, test, and scale digital services. And these are the core areas of innovation where the funding that's coming through AgriFin from the Gates Foundation, the MasterCard Foundation, is focused on innovation. So the first is around smart farming and ag advisory. The second is around digital financial services. And then access to markets and how we can use digital tools to enhance farmer access to markets, digital logistics and last mile distribution, and then the broader world of digital data, which has been an interesting journey of learning this year, looking at how the wide range of digital data that's being captured by our partners can be distilled in ways that will drive further service to farmers, can help lower credit risk, increase transparency, but also in a way that's safe for farmers, that protects their identity and protects their rights. So both programs that we've been running over the last 6 years had the combined target of reaching 2 million farmers on digital channels. And I'm very happy to report after six years that we are now reaching 5.6 million farmers with services in 5 countries. In our Gates Foundation portfolio, we have 98% active use of services we've helped our partners to develop. And I think that represents the advances that we're seeing, both in the ecosystem and the maturity of the ecosystem, but also for AgriFin and our partners figuring out what works. And we'll be talking about that a lot in the presentation today. One thing that I do also want to note is that 2020 was a big year for us, huge year for us, for everyone, because of the emergency context of COVID-19 and Desert Locust. This last year was a complete disruptor for us and for everyone. And one thing that I can say is that the digital channels that we've worked with our partners to build were an amazing platform for emergency response, completely unexpected. But we were able to reach over 16 million farmers with important information and services and support, interactive on digital channels with our farmers. And we'll be leading you through this as I take you on through the agenda. So typically what we do in our kickoff for our annual learning events is we start with key work and highlights from partners' work over the course of this past year. And this year we're absolutely thrilled that we can add to the agenda a lot of impact evidence. So over the course of the last 6 years, we've been developing products and services. Some have failed and some have been redesigned and some have scaled. And today we'll be able to talk with you about a lot of the learning there and the impact about what works. Then we will be very, very fortunate to hear addresses from three distinguished keynote speakers. And I'll introduce them all in their turn as we get to that section. And then we'll move into the AgriFin Recognition Awards. We've never done this before, but after 6 years of working with our partners and really learning more about the impact of their work, we felt like it was time to celebrate with our partners. And then I'll show you the agenda for the event over the next 4 days, and we will officially open the AgriFin annual learning event for 2021. So let me go ahead and give you some quick snapshots of work from this year, a lot of which you can find on our website. And you can see the link down below at mercycorps.agrifin.org. The first is a snapshot that we did in partnership with GIZ this year, looking at digital agriculture platforms. So over the last 6 years, I think 6 years ago, if you'd asked us anything about platforms, we really wouldn't have had a clear sense of what a digital agriculture platform meant. But I think that over the past year, we've been able to distill a lot of the experience and come up with some different types of platform taxonomies that are out there, including platforms that are led by mobile network operators like Safaricom, agribusinesses like Twiga Foods, Flour Mills of Nigeria, banks like Equity Bank, KCB, Zanaco, Stanbic, Sterling, many banks in that family, and also platforms, digital platforms that have been developed by government. We've had amazing partnerships evolve over the last couple of years with ATA, the Agricultural Transformation Agency in Ethiopia, and also with CalRO in Kenya. And there's a really critical role here for government. So one thing that we have seen is that digital platforms are accelerators. So they provide a large, robust digital platform where many players can plug into and grow, and where farmers and farmer-facing organizations can also plug in and get a wide range of services in one instance. There are real advantages in terms of revenue sharing, data and content sharing, and just different kinds of innovations that can scale much more quickly on a digital platform. So I encourage you to visit our website and see the study that we did with GIZ. We think that it provides a blueprint for many organizations to collaborate and build their work moving forward. Another really critical area of work for us, and again, we've got a great session at ALE, actually 2 great sessions linked into this work, is, was focused on our partners that are deploying digitally enabled field force to reach farmers. So I think one thing that we've learned in the last 6 years is that the cell phone will get you so far, but you need that trusted human interface there close to farmers to make a lot of the more complex services work. Many of our partners are working on deploying digitally enabled field force, and it's tough. It is very, very hard. It's expensive, and there's a lot of behavior change that's needed. There's a lot of technology development that's needed, and of course it has to fit the context But one thing that I think we definitely learned from our impact work, as you'll see forward, is that it makes a difference. When you can digitally enable your field force close to farmers, it creates a rich new environment of adoption and impact, particularly for women. So I invite you again to look on our website at the case study on our work with DigiFarm Village Advisors and how that system has really begun to scale and definitely shown impacts for farmers. Another point that we think really deserved a snapshot was a call out to the Ethiopian Agricultural Transformation Agency. ATA has been a leader across Africa in digital innovation for a long time with their 8028 IVR solution, which has reached more than 5 million farmers. To this initiative that we've taken on this year with ATA. ATA recognized that they had a lot of data across the agency and dozens of engagements. And what they did in the space of 3 months when COVID hit was to consolidate that data into one data hub to make sense. Essentially, I think many organizations understand that they've got a bit of information here, some there, doesn't talk to each other. ATA made the commitment to consolidate all of that data, clean it up, start to test it, and also to open APIs to the outside ecosystem of players to make that data available, accessible, actionable, and and we just really applaud this effort by the ATA, and I think we can already see this beginning to bear fruit. We do have a case study on our website around data strategies and data hubs, and that leads us into another tool that we have this year that I think should be very interesting to the broader ecosystem about digital data sharing. And essentially what we realized is that every engagement, every partnership that we've worked on through 150 partnerships and more than 300 engagements, every single one of them has had a critical element of digital data. And digital data sharing is really challenging. Often it fails, sometimes it works, and when it does work, it's transformational. So what we wanted to do was dive into our own experience, and we have a great case study on the website that we did with ISF this year, and it looked at the typologies of what we've done with data and what has worked. And these were three of the core areas: multilateral, so bringing partnerships together to provide services; driving platforms themselves; and also open data initiatives. So I encourage you to take a look. Data is transformational, but it's very tricky. One thing that is another part of this case study is looking at which of our partners had them and how they were using the data. So you can see that data was being used to score risk, to develop products, to deliver training, to deliver public-facing information, to optimize field force teams, and to drive input sales, among many others. But what we wanted to do was to distill out the use cases for digital data, and hopefully this can begin to to guide better data collaborations moving forward. There are toolkits that are included in this case study, so we really encourage you to join this session during ALE and also to visit the case. Another huge call out for us is Nigeria. So when we first started working in Nigeria, we had very low expectations. We knew that it was a tough market, that the digital ecosystem was very different from Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, and we had a very small target. We hoped that we'd be able to reach 25,000 farmers in 2 years. We're already reaching more than 300,000. We expect to be reaching 500,000 in the next couple of months. And what we have found is that the context for Nigeria is very specific, but the innovation levels are very high. And we'll have a case study coming out soon on the landscape for Nigeria, but we did want to just really point to the incredible partnerships that we're seeing and things that are making a difference in Nigeria, including the partnership between Indorama and Ignicia to deliver targeted weather information. Agrimal and Viamo to really digitize huge extension networks covering very large areas of Nigeria. And Hello Tractor, who's been one of our most interesting and impactful partners, and many others. Really, Nigeria has been a great success, and we look forward to being part of that growth in the next 4 years. And then, of course, the same thing happened to us that happened to everyone on this call. Despite all of our well-laid plans for 2020, it was all hit by COVID-19, and even a couple of months before COVID-19 hit, by desert locust in East Africa. So we had to decide as a team whether or not to repurpose ourselves as an emergency response team. Mercy Corps is good at that, but AgriFin had never done it before. And we dove in, we agreed as a team that we should dive in and we should try to make digital channels very relevant. And what happened surprised even us. We had hoped to maybe be able to reach 8 million farmers. We were able to reach 16 million plus across 6 countries. It started with human-centered design, which is a major place where we always start. We have to understand what the problem is for farmers. And Producers Direct and IDEO.org did some really great work globally, actually, with smallholder farmers to help us understand in rural areas what was going on. And what they found, of course, was that misinformation was very, very common. And that understanding of COVID and the personal risks, the farm risks, the business risks were not there. So we focused a lot on that. But at the same time, we had already launched an effort to look at the risks of desert locust, which were exponentially increased by the advent of COVID. Because for desert locusts, you need to be on the ground and validate where they are. With COVID, nobody could get to the field. So I just want to make a huge shout out to our partners at Medii, Turn.io, Plant Villages, and our COVID desert locust response lead, John Mundy, for the incredible solution that they launched within 2 months. And this had multiple elements. You'll see that basically what we learned working across multiple countries and multiple perils was that one channel does not fit all. What we decided to do is throw every single digital channel that we could think of at the problem, develop digital content that fit that context and that channel, and to get it out there. And so this is really a snapshot of the 25 partners that we were able to mobilize, including the government of Kenya and the government of Ethiopia, to reach this double peril. I encourage you to see the session, to attend the session on what we learned about digital channels and emergency response. One thing that we found was that farmer trust in digital channels is enhanced if you do approach this on multiple channels. One of the surprise channels for us that was high impact were farmer Facebook groups. And in every country, different channels respond differently to the crisis. Farmers are on different channels. So we just want to call out We Farm, Producers Direct, Medii, Viamo, Airtel, and the ATA in Ethiopia for being incredible partners and helping us get this out at scale. And that taught us a funky lesson. And we're in the middle of an experiment related to that, and that is what we learned was that over an emergency, very quickly we could reach large numbers of farmers with simple messaging that made a difference. And so we're currently working on a new project called the Open Content for Agriculture Partnership. And we're developing this as a global public good. What we found is there are a lot of actors out there with great content for farmers, but they don't have a channel. And there are a lot of organizations out there, farmer-facing organizations that have a channel to farmer, but they don't have great content. So what we're trying to do with the OCAP, together with CalRO, AgriFin, and many other partners, is to create a platform where that free content can be easily accessed, and content that is tailored for digital channels. So watch this space. We have a session on OCAP coming up. And we think that this could be a really important game changer for creating an open portal for free content that anybody can access and use. We do recognize that content is always going to have to be contextualized, and work with partners like AgriFin and hopefully in the future, Viamo, many others, to make sure that really great content is developed for local context as well. But please do watch the space. It's our first real go at a global public good, and we're grateful to CalRO and CGIAR, CABI, and so many other organizations that are jumping in on this, and to GIZ, which is a major partner for us in getting this thing designed, tested, and hopefully scaled. And then finally, I just wanted to call out the fact that we've had a big learning journey on gender this year. You'll see in a minute more about the evidence on gender. But one thing that, I'll just go ahead and make a shout out about is that we have always failed to reach our gender targets overall for the portfolio. Some partners have really excelled in reaching women. Most partners have struggled. And this has been our hardest target. We've more than doubled all of our targets, but we're starting to learn more about reaching women. And one of the things that we've learned is that if you do not take a gender transformational approach, if you just hope for the best, pick the right value chain, do your research, it's not going to be enough. And so one of the things that we've invested a lot in this year is the development of a transformational approach for our AgriFin gender strategy. This will change how we work with our partners moving forward, certainly changes our lens to draw on evidence for gender impacts and what works for women. So really invite you to join 2 sessions on gender this year at ALE, one on gender impacts, what we've actually learned, and then the second is a gender transformational session that really looks in depth at what we need to do to be transformational, not just intentional, certainly not blind, what we need to do to be transformational in gender. And here's some just quick snapshots from our strategy. We realize that market access innovations is critical for women. It's something that they truly value. Land-related innovation, because women have lower access to land and to water, so they are disproportionately affected by the impacts of climate change, for example, and that women really do look for skills development innovations, and there are critical inputs such as irrigation and mechanization, where women are disproportionately not gaining access to services, and we need to make sure that happens. So watch this space where we will make all of this public together with a gender transformational toolkit later in May. So those are some snapshots from some of the many pieces of work, streams of work from this past year. And then I'll just really quickly go through our impact results. And again, these are snapshots. The detail will come through in the sessions later on. So again, I just invite you, if there's a particular area of interest and you feel like you're getting whiplash looking at all my slides, please do join the session, and everything will be recorded and will be on our website. So over this year, which I have to say was the worst possible year to measure impact of all of these services on farmers because of COVID and because of desert locust, we launched 15 major impact studies, including 10 lean data agile impact studies, an ecosystem evaluation, 4 gender deep dives, and a digifarm impact study. So actually that's 16, I stand corrected. You guys will see a lot of the impact evidence coming through, and we will have a full synthesis case study out in a couple of weeks. But these are some things that I wanted to call out that I thought were really important as we look at what works for farmers. So I'll go ahead and put it right up there. Hello Tractor, digital tractor ordering, 77% of farmers report very much increased quality of life, revenue, and production. So, this is something that we knew, but now we're seeing, the real evidence that mechanization on its own, getting access to a tractor makes a huge difference for farmers. And this can be facilitated on digital channels. Really want to congratulate Hello Tractor on all of the innovation that they have, taken on and advanced in their partnership with AgriFin. The next is CHMOCA. This is a VSLA, a Village Savings and Loans Association savings application that's been developed by CARE, which is called CHMOCA. As many of you know, CARE is just a global leader, but particularly here in Africa, in developing Village Savings and Loans Association for women. There are millions of women across rural Africa who take part in these groups. And this application has been shown to reach 100% low-income farmers, 94% first-time access to digital financial services, and then you're beginning to see the beginnings of impact on the farm business. So it's still early days for CHMOCA, but we're excited about it. And then I'd like to call out Ignicia Weather Advisory, and also just want to let you know that the weather advisory results for Aware and Calro are also just in, and just as impressive. That farmers who are getting access to just simple weather advisory that is linked to the location of their farm, so it's more precise, are showing a 68% increase in productivity and income. It's extremely important with rain-fed agriculture that we get them this data, and what you'll see later on is bundling this weather data with other services even more impactful. Next, I'll call out Sun Culture and their solar irrigation model, which has very much increased quality of income, also quality of life, levels of income, and crop production. We have put out a brief this year with Dahlberg on the power of irrigation to be a game changer for smallholder farmers, and this is something we're really committed to making sure that we support moving forward in our climate smart strategy. And then finally, just a quick snapshot from the DigiFarm gender study. One thing I'd like to say about DigiFarm is that in its active portfolio now, they're reaching, I think, 48% women, which is remarkable. And the impact for women across the bundle of services in DigiFarm has significantly increased yields, productivity, income, and increased women's agricultural decision-making power, increased their level of financial empowerment in their own household, and has saved time and reduced time poverty for women, allowing them to hire more labor. So we think this is one of the gender breakthroughs. And that leads us into our gender deep dives. So with the Gates Foundation, and huge thanks to the Gates Foundation for investing in this, we really wanted to look at 4 of our lead organizations that we knew were reaching women, and look at what were their trends in usage. What did this mean for women's attitudes and decision-making processes? We really wanted to understand why they adopt services and why they actively use them, and to look at the types of products that made a difference for women's livelihoods and their resilience, and to make recommendations that we'll carry forward in our gender strategy, and all of this made public. This study is still coming out. It's not yet public, but so this is a quick snapshot. These are the 4 organizations that we looked at. AgriFin, which is an online learning companion, a digital learning companion. And essentially what you saw with AgriFin was that it's helped women change their agricultural practices. It's helped them build their financial independence, because there are many different things you can learn about on AgriFin. And it's led to cost savings and increased ability for women to repay their loans on time, which is very important. So many more details coming out in this session. DigiFarm we've just talked about, but I will highlight how important the DigiFarm Village Advisors, the field force, was to women in particular. Women have reduced mobility, and having someone come to your farm gate and really help you to access markets, access inputs, understand the technology made a huge difference for women on DigiFarm. AgriPay is a leading solution developed with AgriFin and Zanaco Bank in Zambia. Zambia is a nascent digital market, so it's really been quite a challenge. But Zanaco was unique in the fact that they designed the entire thing for women, 100% women's human-centered design. And as it turns out, the solution is half used by men, half used by women. What women really value on this platform, which is an early stage rollout still, is the ability to safely store their money, very, very low transaction fees, and the ability to, track their financial usage. And they've said that it has helped them to increase their financial discipline. So we're looking forward to, more time with Zanaco and AgriPay to grow this. And then finally, the last organization studied was the Farm to Market Alliance, which we worked with in Kenya, Tanzania, and Zambia. The Farm to Market Alliance is a consortium product that's managed by the World Food Program. And definitely we saw impact for women on Farm to Market Alliance, particularly through the training that's offered. It's very, very high quality training, and it's helped women to to improve their farm practice and to diversify their farm practice. And that's been linked to increased income. In many cases, Farm to Market Alliance also gives women access to a guaranteed market, which makes a big difference. And again, we see that women have saved time and been able to hire more labor. Finally, I'll run you through a couple of last quick snapshots of the lean data impact studies with 60 decibels. And 60 decibels portfolio basically showed that this was just 10 of our partners. And I applaud every single one of them. It's very difficult for organizations over the COVID period to engage in impact evaluation. It takes a brave organization to do it, because definitely farmers have been hard hit by COVID. And so, we have to take that into account as we look at all this impact information. But what we've seen is that the portfolio overall has responded very, very well. AgriFin's partners achieve basically higher than 60 decibels normal benchmarks in agriculture. But one thing that we've seen is that the impact for women, the satisfaction for women with digital services is actually on par with men. So I think that's important as we look forward. Many people think that digital doesn't work for women, but I think we clearly have evidence that digital can work for women. Also, a really important finding is that bundled services make a difference. With additional products and services available to farmers in one instance, impact increases, and demand by farmers for bundled services does make a difference. We've also found that operational challenges are a big limit on the impact for farmers. What 60 decibels called out was that payment delays, input provision delays make a difference for farmers. A lot of impact that we could gain, we lose through operational challenges. Farmers are asking for more information. They're asking for more engagement. They're asking for more content. I think that all of our digital partners should keep that in mind as they move forward. They asked for quite a bit more follow-up support, particularly for financial services, and definitely for more field force. So these are nuts that we have to crack. One thing that I'll show is, that over the course of this past year, 90% of smallholder farmers in Kenya, according to 60 decibels, have reported decreased income because of COVID. But essentially what we're seeing across many of these organizations is that 4 out of 5 farmers are increasing their farm revenue through use of digital tools. So this does make a difference. And during a time of COVID, when farmers have lost a lot of the ability to get to market, these services make a difference. So the last snapshot of impact evidence we want to show you is around Digifarm. We did a very large representative study of Digifarm again over 2020. Not the best year to be looking at farmer inputs. For those of you who aren't familiar with Digifarm, it's a service of Safaricom here in Kenya. It's our very first partner. Over the years, they've developed a platform that includes many, many partners. It includes financial services, access to inputs, access to markets, learning, and a Digifarm Village Advisor, plus other services like precision agriculture and soil testing. So really, in terms of a comprehensive bundle, Digifarm is out there still trying to figure out how to make it all work. But the impact evidence is basically shown that even over 2020, when 90% of Kenyan farmers were financially worse off, Digifarm farmers were able to expand their farm businesses, save more, change farm practice, and they built capacity that allowed them to respond to external shocks, which is important to us as we move forward into a context of climate change. Here again, in addition to the 60 decibels research, we found that bundle services are driving enhanced impacts, and that we have significantly improved farm profit from between the seasons of last October to February, again, which was not an easy time. We found that access to input credit, high quality inputs and credit, plus AgriFin e-learnings were the most used and the most valued by farmers. Farmers appreciated the flexibility and convenience of AgriFin learning, and obviously the quality inputs, but also on credit that helped them to build their farms as well. The digital marketplace for farmers is still really early stage. A lot of farmers are nervous about transacting online, but they did share positive market access views on DigiFarm, largely because DigiFarm put the field force out to use a digital and human interface. One thing that was interesting from the study was that we found that users who are empowered through DigiFarm start to seek digital solutions from other partners, from other providers. So DigiFarm seems to be a gateway type product where farmers get comfortable on their phone and they start looking to solve more of their problems on their phone. And as we said before, onboarding and training from the DVA significantly increases trust and use of DigiFarm Village Advisors. And there's a clear demand for more direct human support in addition to, to the digital experience. So this is just a quick snapshot. Again, we really hope that you'll be able to join the sessions over the course of the year to dive into anything that's of particular interest. Everything will be recorded and on our website. And now I have the pleasure, I hope I'm not way too far over time, but a lot to talk about, to introduce our distinguished keynote speakers. And we're thrilled this year to have three incredible women who really make a difference in their work, who've joined us to deliver addresses. And first, I'd like to introduce Her Majesty Queen Maxima of the Netherlands. Since 2009, Queen Maxima of the Netherlands has served as the United Nations Secretary General's Special Advocate for Inclusive Finance for Development, or the UNSGSA for short. As Special Advocate, Queen Maxima is a leading global voice on advancing universal access to and responsible use of affordable, effective, and safe financial services. She raises awareness, serves as a convener, encourages leaders, and supports action to expand financial inclusion at a global and a country level, all in close collaboration with partners from the private and public sectors. An important focus of her work is on enabling responsible technology for financial inclusion in support of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And Queen Maxima and her team have kindly recorded a video in advance, and I'll go ahead and ask the team to share it with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, addressing the estimated $42 billion financing gap for smallholder farmers in sub-Saharan Africa will require game-changing solutions. Mobile-based service platforms and digital farm technology, including sensors, satellite images, and drones, help reduce information gaps, promote access to the formal system, and provide tools to better manage risks. Risk management is particularly critical for smallholder farmers. For example, the worst plague of desert locusts in the last 70 years hit East Africa in 2020. The AgriFin program supported eradication efforts by mapping locust swarms in real time using satellite and field-level data. It also worked with insurance providers, including Bula and Acre Africa, to leverage this data to deliver insurance and first loss facilities. This further protected farmers against the climate-related risks of desert locust. Technology-based solutions have grown in importance since the Covid-19 pandemic. Similarly to 2008 global economic crisis, agriculture is serving as a buffer for low-income households, according to recent World Bank data. While there has been an increase in households moving toward agriculture since the start of the pandemic, farmers face declines in revenue due to market closures, reduced demand, and value chain interruptions. This means more erratic income flows, greater vulnerability, and heightened financial stress. While technology offers new opportunities and support farmers with the financial tools they need, further investments are needed to turn the promise of these solutions into scale. Today, there are many agricultural finance pilots with limited reach and scale across Africa. It is key to prioritize policies to scale them sustainably. This includes implementing adequate operational and financial incentives across stakeholders who manage these pilots. This also means reviewing pricing schemes to achieve sustainability once donor funding ends. Stakeholders must dedicate adequate technical, financial, and human resources to such pilots to ensure that commitments are translated to on-the-ground implementation. Covid-19 has underscored the importance of ensuring that digital public goods enhance financial inclusion for smallholder farmers. This includes expanded digital identification, extended affordable telecommunication connectivity to the last mile, and financial sector regulations supportive of digital financial services. When these key prerequisites are in place, governments and the private sector can rapidly mobilize to provide farmers with the financial tools to withstand shocks. Governments should act swiftly to invest and build these key prerequisites as well as address enabling environment issues. Now is the time to prioritize the financial and digital inclusion for female smallholder farmers. Women produce nearly 70% of Africa's food, yet they are disproportionately affected by unequal access to markets, inputs, finance, and land. The pandemic has only intensified these inequalities. Programs must target women smallholders and address their specific constraints. When introduced safely and responsibly, technology can make a real difference. Leveraging data from cell phone and digital platforms helps facilitate access to credit for women. And this is important because many of them lack assets, such as land, that are really needed for collateral against loans. There is a need to invest in proven interventions that can scale quickly. For example, the AgriFin program has supported the digitization of saving groups in Tanzania through the Chomoka program. This intervention has made saving groups more efficient and trustworthy, and members are reporting improvements in livelihood outcomes and overall well-being. Technology also plays a key role in promoting climate-smart agriculture, or CSA. 25% of crops in lower-income countries grown by small-scale farmers are projected to fail because of climate change. CSA requires product and service innovation, along with tremendous behavioral change across the agricultural sector. Governments can encourage emerging CSA solutions through policies such as tax relief, supporting social enterprises, introducing smart subsidies so farmers adopt new practices, and agile private-public partnerships to unlock financing barriers to support CSA interventions. Mercy Corps' work to serve more than 16 million farmers in 8 countries over the past 6 years is impressive. This program is at the heart of the digital transformation necessary to achieve improved well-being outcomes for vulnerable farmers, particularly women. Further, Mercy Corps' recent research helps us to know what really works. It should be disseminated widely, including among government counterparts. I encourage participants to use this week to gain insights and renew commitments backed by financial and technical resources to accelerate progress. Collaboration is key to achieve a future for smallholder farmers that is inclusive, tech-driven, climate-smart, and sustainable. Thank you.
We want to really thank Queen Maxima, her team, and the team of the United Nations for taking the time to join this event and to include these incredible comments. I mean, they're so important as a guidepost for us as we take AgriFin forward into the next 4 years. And thank you very much. I'd like to introduce our next distinguished speaker, and I have the pleasure to introduce the CEO of Mercy Corps, Jada Doyen Mckenna, who has joined us over the past year. Jada Mckenna has grounded her career in the simple belief that no matter where someone is born, no matter where they live, they should be able to lead a thriving and successful life. As CEO of Mercy Corps, Jada leads a global team of over 5,600 humanitarians, driving transformational change in more than 40 countries. Previously, she served as COO of both CARE and Habitat for Humanity. Jada has spent more than a decade working to end the world hunger in roles with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the US government. During the Obama administration, Jada served as a deputy coordinator of development for Feed the Future, the US government's global hunger and food security initiative, as well as the assistant to the administrator of the US Agency for International Development's Bureau for Food Security in Washington, DC. Jada also brings a passion for innovation to her work, developed early in her career through various roles at McKinsey & Company, American Express, and General Electric. We're so glad that Jada could join our opening plenary and look forward to her address now.
Thank you to the Mercy Corps AgriFin team for inviting me to speak today. It is an honor to address the AgriFin ecosystem of partners and stakeholders. Thank you to UN Special Advocate Queen Maxima for providing those words of support a moment ago. And I look forward to hearing from Tule Linnea from the Government of Kenya's Agricultural Transformation Office. After 6 years of work with the MasterCard and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, we are excited to be meeting today to discuss evidence of what works best to boost digital and financial inclusion for African smallholders, including women. This work draws on experience from Mercy Corps' global team of 5,600 humanitarians working across more than 40 countries to create a future where everyone can prosper. Over the past year, under the tremendously difficult conditions created by COVID-19, we at Mercy Corps have reached more than 37 million people. AgriFin has played a vital role in our efforts to support communities facing the biggest ripple effects from the pandemic, providing emergency information on COVID-19 and desert locust to 16 million farmers. Another 5.6 million farmers have registered for our innovative digital solutions. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to our team and to all AgriFin partners across Africa who have been working so tirelessly for the past year to reach farmers, support food systems, and drive innovation in the face of significant challenges. As you know, your work is more critical now than ever before. Food insecurity and hunger are on the rise. 114 million people globally have lost their jobs due to market disruptions and movement restrictions. Another 141 million people have reduced their hours, which has led to an income loss of over $3.7 trillion. The price of basic staples such as grain and dairy have inflated tremendously, triggered by COVID-19's supply chain disruptions. For example, in South Sudan, the cost of a standard food basket given to the food insecure has increased by 42% over last year, leaving 8.3 million people in need of food assistance. This combination of income loss and higher food prices means that millions of families are going hungry because they simply can't afford to buy enough food. And when people can't afford food, they resort to selling assets, pulling children out of school, or marrying girls away early. AgriFin has partnered with impact measurement company 60 Decibels to understand how Kenyan farmers are coping with COVID. After a year of the pandemic, we found that 9 in 10 farming households reported being worse off. There are also signs of future distress. Farmers are increasingly tapping into their savings, which suggests they are running out of financial reserves. While prices of food have stabilized, farmers are earning less for their produce and have poor access to markets, putting future earnings at risk. For example, in Kenya, Consistent high costs are limiting the use of essential inputs such as seeds and fertilizer. Over 50% of Kenyan farmers said they were buying fewer inputs and hiring less for the season. 8 out of 10 said they would like to sell more, but are unable to find markets. The World Food Program now estimates that more than 270 million people are acutely food insecure or directly at risk of becoming so. That represents an 82% spike from this time last year. This rise in hunger and food insecurity will have a long-lasting effect if we don't take action. Extreme poverty is also on the rise for the first time in 2 decades. Longer-term impacts of COVID will push an additional 88 to 115 million people into extreme poverty. There likely will be further supply chain disruptions that make it harder for farmers to get seeds and fertilizer from neighboring countries and sell perishable produce to markets that have been closed down. The pandemic is also reversing progress towards gender equality. Women and girls are enduring the worst of the pandemic, suffering greater threats to their health and livelihoods than men, enduring an increase in physical violence, and shouldering more burdens as they care for ill family members. In Northwest Nigeria, COVID-related closures of the border with Niger have increased unemployment and reduced trade for border communities, making it harder for farmers to get their food to market and for families to buy the basic supplies that they need. The longer African countries and their rural populations wait for vaccines, the greater the risk that violence will increase and that hunger and poverty will worsen, making it more difficult and more time-consuming to reverse these worrying trends. The challenges are immense. So how together can we meet this moment? First, we must advocate for COVID vaccines to be distributed equitably around the world. This is critical to ending the pandemic and beginning recovery. We also need strong collaboration between governments, food systems actors, and global health partners to ensure that people living in rural areas and hard to reach areas are not left out of vaccination efforts. We need action now to create vaccine acceptance and to lay the groundwork for a successful vaccine rollout when the vaccines are widely available. But while successful vaccine rollout is critical, it's not a cure-all solution for post-pandemic recovery. Unfortunately, foreign assistance from governments is not keeping pace with the ballooning need that we see across the globe. This is where the ecosystem of public and private sector actors working together to leverage digital services to support food systems and smallholder farmers is so important. 60 Decibels research in Kenya shows that 36% of farmers have increased their use of digital tools over the pandemic. In addition, we know that farmers are seeking affordable inputs, access to markets, information, transport, and cash. AgriFin is a prime example of how public-private technology partnerships can drive quick and effective responses to issues like the desert locust plague, even during lockdowns. Digital leaders in Africa like Safaricom, Arifu, Zanaco, Kerchimoka, and WFP's Farm to Market Alliance are showing us how we can bridge the digital divide to ensure that women are a meaningful part of these advances. I encourage you to join in the ALE sessions on gender impact evidence and gender transformation this week to learn more. At Mercy Corps, we also believe that now is the time to increase cash assistance. Cash can help rural households invest in their farms, purchase food, and meet other needs. Cash assistance helps local economies to keep going and helps Africa's smallholder farmers meet the needs of a growing population while allowing families the dignity and opportunity to make their own choices. We must use this opportunity to build back better, enabling agricultural markets and food systems with technologies that build sustainable production, gender inclusion, and farmer resilience to climate change. I am encouraged by the work of partners like Acre Africa, which is using blockchain and smart contracts to provide farmers with crop insurance payouts in a matter of days instead of months. And so much promise is represented in evolving digital platforms with partners like Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization, the Agricultural Transformation Agency of Ethiopia, Flour Mills of Nigeria, Co-Amana, and others. Mercy Corps' experience and research has shown that in times of crisis, people rely on local economies and markets for food and income far more than the support of aid groups. Leveraging this knowledge, we are proud to see AgriFin expand its vision of all smallholders prospering in an interconnected world, working in partnerships with agencies like NASA, the CGIAR, the World Bank, and CGAP. I would like to congratulate the AgriFin team on opening this event with evidence of innovation, scale, and impact in smallholder farmers in Africa. I would also like to express our gratitude to AgriFin's major funders, the MasterCard and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations, which have provided patient funding to build partnerships, solutions, and inclusive approaches needed for these results. I would also like to thank the many funders who have embraced the AgriFin model, including GIZ, Cisco, the Skoll and Rabobank Foundations, as well as the Financial Services Deepening Trust of Kenya, Tanzania, and Zambia. Over the next 4 years, we welcome the Bear Foundation as Mercy Corps AgriFin takes on the challenges of climate change and gender transformation in the technology innovation space. As this pandemic threatens to wipe away decades of progress, we must bring all of our resources to bear to ensure Africa's smallholders can weather this and future crises and build a better future for themselves, their families, and their communities. And we must do so in a sustainable and scalable way, leveraging advances of digital innovation and the power of partnerships to lift up Africa's smallholders, farmers, rural people, and economies and food systems. Thank you so much and have a wonderful event.
Thank you so much to our CEO, Jada. We're really honored to have her time here as a part of the annual learning event and our opening plenary. I'd like to introduce our third and last distinguished speaker, Tula Linnea. Tula is a self-described person on a mission and began her career in Zimbabwe as part of a startup that implemented the first e-voucher program on the continent, the precursor to a very successful Zambian e-voucher program. During that time, she gained hands-on experience in what would become the digital transformation space. And over the years, she's established herself as a sought-after thought leader. Currently, Tula is working as the Agricultural Transformation Office Coordinator for the Cabinet Secretary of the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries, and Cooperatives in Kenya. Tula is charged with driving the transformative agenda in the agricultural sector through fostering partnerships, embracing digital innovation that can make a tangible difference in how the ministry operates, is viewed, and interacts with the wider community. Tula is leading this exciting initiative to improve productivity and market access for producers and provide engagement for youth all across agri-food value chains. For Tula, watching the old guard become the vanguard in the digital transformation of agriculture is the reward. Thank you very much, Tula, and looking forward to hearing your remarks.
Thank you, Lisa. And just to say, Special Advocate Queen Maxima and Tiara Oyen Mckenna of Mercy Corps, I really am honored to be part of such an esteemed panel of speakers. And so mine will be a presentation similar to Lisa's, just to take you through the work that we have done as the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries, and Cooperatives here in Kenya. So if you'll allow me, I'll just share my screen. So my presentation, we're looking specifically at the policy framework for digital and data transformation in agriculture in Kenya. So digitization came out of the context of our agriculture sector transformation and growth strategy, our 10-year strategy, which was launched in 2019. And it was anchored on 3 tenets of increasing small-scale farmers' incomes, increasing food availability through the year towards 100% food and nutrition security, aligned with our Big 4 agenda that the president launched in 2018, and then boosting household food resilience, especially for the most vulnerable. And this is particularly because we have the ASAL regions, which are the arid and semi-arid lands of Kenya, and reducing the number of food insecure Kenyans to reducing the cost of nutritious food. So the objective of the ASTGS is to create a vibrant, commercial and modern agriculture sector in the context of both devolution, because we are a devolved function, as well as working with the small-scale farmers without excluding them from the larger production capabilities, thus making food available at affordable prices to the entire population. So the ASTGS identified 9 flagships to drive these outcomes. And these 9 flagships are working with private sector in particular, because we recognize that government shouldn't be the doer, but rather the creating the conducive environment for our partners, both in private sector, our donor-led, our private, our development partners, in being able to implement transformation activities and programs that will really ensure that we support our target of reducing malnutrition and increasing food security. So the first flagship, targeting 1 million farmers, pastoralists and fisherfolk, who we now call our producers, by supporting 1,000 farmer-facing SMEs through SME accelerators. And this is specifically because SMEs need to be provided with the business skills in particular to then be able to apply to Mercy Corps, for example, or AgriFin, to then be able to support the farmers that they work with and build more stronger linkages with the market. Flagship number 2 is supporting a nationwide input support program of e-vouchers to 1.4 million high needs farming households. This is an anchor program under our digital transformation. Right now, we launched it in mid-2020 of last year. Even in the midst of the pandemic, the Cabinet Secretary recognized that it was important that we had digital interventions that supported our small-scale farmers as quickly as possible, with government reducing its buying capabilities or buying needs to support farmers in terms of inputs, seeds, and pesticides, and have created a network of over 450 agro-dealers who are currently being paid through the system, similar to one of the platforms that Elisa just presented earlier. So flagship number 3 and 4 are specific to our increased private sector engagement, setting up 6 agro-processing hubs and the unlocking of 50 large-scale farms. This is not directly involved with digital platforms, but as we implement the land commercialization initiative, the work is going to be done on an electronic platform that allows for people to have more visibility and access to the information, as well as the opportunities in Kenya. Boosting household resilience is our 3rd anchor, and that's under flagships 5 and 6, which is restructuring our strategic food reserves, which we completed in 2019, just before the pandemic. And this is moving away from government directly procuring seed and grain, but ensuring that there is enough strategic reserve in private sector hands to support the needs of 4 million high needs Kenyans. And then boosting food resilience of 1.4 million producers through in ASAL households. This is specifically for community-driven projects that are designed beyond just us sitting in our offices and stating that we know what the small-scale producers need. This is for communities to participate in designing of the programs that will actually have a real impact in their communities on a sustainable level. And then finally, the enabling flagships are flagships 7, 8, and 9. The launching of 3 knowledge and skills building programs. Specifically, there is the drive towards our national agriculture sector extension policy, which is about looking at 3,000 extension agents. Since it's an devolved function, we need to work with our county counterparts to ensure that each extension agent is efficiently and sufficiently trained, but also is capacitated with digital tools for training, for information and knowledge transfer to the farmers, as well as support with regards to access to a number of services, including credit, insurance, and potentially the market. And then strengthening research and innovation is flagship number 8. This is specifically ties into this discussion with regards to digital tools and implementation of e-incentives and digital platforms, and then actively monitoring 2 food key system risks. Also another digitally driven platform or flagship where we're looking at setting up an early warning system, specifically tying in all the climate issues, pest, disease risks that our farmers face. And so to drive the ASTGS, this is how I came into the ATO, we report to the Cabinet Secretary, and we're designed to coordinate and performance manage the ASTGS and its implementation across all these 9 flagships. So out of the ASTGS came the digital strategy. And to be honest, the silver lining out of the COVID cloud was that we had to fast track the launch of the digital strategy, recognizing that digital platforms and tools would be the answer to our ability to support our farmers and support the ability for food access, food availability, and in the ultimately food affordability for communities to then be able to feed their families. And so out of that digital strategy came 7 digital use cases, all anchored around the ASTGS anchor tenants of income, boosting food resilience, and cross-cutting support. And specifically, the digital use case number 1 was accelerating our farmer registration and targeting eligible farmers with e-incentives. Similar to what Lisa explained earlier, we recognize there was a proliferation of digital tools and platforms and systems and services, even within ministry, that had registered farmers across our value chains. So our value chains are livestock, fisheries, and crops based. And we needed to ensure that we had one centralized database, which we finalized earlier this year, and have launched that service to ensure that we have a farmer census and increase and widening it now to value chain actors census. Improving farmer practices. This is through e-extension services that are customized, available for community levels, driven by village-based advisors, or I think they're called village technical services, where they provide agro-weather analytics. This is through our KOP, which is the Kenya Agriculture Observatory platform, also launched last year. We did quite a few launches last year on these digital platforms, and giving farmers details on their climatic issues and climatic challenges or changes that they needed to respond to, especially because a lot of them farm on rain-fed and depend on rain-fed agriculture. Use case number 3 is our emergency food reserve stocks, which is our digital food balance sheet. This was launched in 2019, and this is to ensure that we have, one, an availability of information with regards to our stocks, which I'll explain a little bit later. So I'll talk about that in our next slide. And then our early warning system is use case number 4, which I explained earlier, which is aligned with flagship number 9. Use case number 5, improving value chain selection, which is specific to ensuring that all agro activities are aligned with your agro potential zones, so that if you have an area that is more suitable for sorghum rather than maize, we as government encourage information sharing with regards to training on sorghum growing, support from input service providers on sorghum, so that it is value chain specific and not just what we're used to in terms of the status quo. And then the cross-cutting support are use cases 6 and 7, where we're driving monitoring and evaluation, which is extremely important in being able to track and course correct where need to be in terms of the activities, especially if we want to drive transformation in the sector. And then finally, establishing standards and protocol for a shared data platform, which I'll explain in a few slides. So just giving a quick snapshot, this is not our exhaustive list of all the various initiatives that we have built or supported that rely on or require data. So the first one was our proof of concept, is our digital dashboards that track food availability, accessibility, and affordability, like I mentioned. And this is with regards to information shared with all the programs and projects working across the ministry and providing us information on outputs. They provide us the metrics, and then this is uploaded onto a platform that gives crop, livestock, and fish markets that are operational, as you can see in the small map over there that shows the market status. And this was particularly important for us during the height of the pandemic, or when we had really restrictive measures on movement across county lines or within the country. We needed to be able to assess where food was, how much it cost, and how available it was to the communities that were, well, everyone was affected, actually, as Lisa said. So, which also leads us to the desert locusts. In 2019, Kenya had the worst desert locust invasion in the last 70 years. Swarms were covering over 173,000 hectares of cropland as well as livestock pasture. And so without data, which was provided by support from the World Bank and the FAO, through the eLocust platform, we would not have been able to have effectively surveyed and had spraying activities as quick as possible in all the areas that were highly affected by locusts. And for us, data was the only way we could make sure that our DL, as we would now call him, our DL response activities, excuse me, were effective and did not spray beyond the areas that needed to be sprayed. So the losses of land for livestock pasture range from 15 to 40% in some of the affected counties, and then over 5,400 hectares of cropland specifically were affected. And so without the information provided by eLocust and the availability of information and handheld devices to our locust response teams, we would have certainly had a much worse impact from desert locust invasion. And as I mentioned earlier, the digital food balance sheet, which we implemented in September 2019 through the National Cereals and Produce Board, supported by CalRO. You can see the website there, fbs.calro.org. Also supported by Mercy Corps, is our digital food balance sheet. In the end, is going to be replicated into our regional food balance sheet because it provides information on stock levels. So when we launched it, we are currently expanding because this is also still at POC level, proof of concept. We're only currently looking at 2 value chains, that's maize and wheat. But for the purpose of this presentation, we're illustrating our maize stocks, supplies across multiple stakeholders, production, so it's looking at the forecast of the season in terms of the expected production, trade, both formal and informal flows of grain across the border with our neighboring countries, barring any changes that we make with regards to our expectations on ensuring that importing partners have the appropriate certificates for safety. SPS is part of what we signed on to as a region, as well as internationally. And so now Kenya is working very hard towards ensuring that we implement those certificates to safeguard consumer safety, especially with access to food and grain. And then finally, consumption, what is our expected maize consumption by region within the country? And then the food balance, which is the net effect of all that supply and demand drivers to understand the total current balance sheet. So how have we worked towards data collaboration in agriculture? You know, with all these very many disparate and like I said, proliferation of platforms and tools, we have, as the ATO, are working towards ensuring that there's increased collaboration on all these interventions. So our first case study is how we implemented our food security war room during the height of COVID-19. In April and May, we implemented the food security war room where we engaged and coordinated over 50 stakeholders on a daily basis and reported on a weekly basis to the cabinet secretary and then to the food security committee And this is the model we're using that we will use for the coordination and the implementation of the Kenya Unified Agriculture Data Platform. You can see the many players we worked with. We worked with a number of development partners. We had strong support from AGRA, as well as MasterCard Foundation in establishing the Food Security War Room. They supported making sure that we had the platform in place and people were trained on using it and ensuring that the counties were collecting information from all our markets, as well as our service providers and private sector players such as Pula, Kopia, Soko, Watch, Victory Farms, and a few others, as well as ETG. And we also got a lot of support from Thunderbird School of Management, who supported us in ensuring that we had a platform, Esri, the ArcGIS platform, that ensured that we could geomap and geolocate the markets, which were either open or closed. In fact, we actually managed to geolocate all our 268 markets, because in Kenya, a lot of the food access is through these informal markets. And then finally, we worked with a number of our government counterparts and within our programs and projects, and pulled a lot of resources from there, in terms of supporting us with data and response, and allowing for people to be able to move between borders of counties to then deliver food and make available that food at an affordable price. As I mentioned, we launched our e-voucher program. It isn't the first country to launch an e-voucher program, similar to Zimbabwe and Zambia and Malawi. This e-voucher program is an ecosystem that brings in the inputs providers, agro dealers, who are the touch points for our farmers to then be able to access the inputs at a more affordable rate, but also closer to their home, so that they don't spend a whole day trying to access their inputs and services, but also is to widen the service availability to a singular channel where people can access credit in the long run, as well as credit, insurance, and then market linkages. So this is the start, and the intention is that as government, we will only be literally supporting directly to the farmers, but we will have participating financial institutions interfacing with this service provision, as well as insurance providers, so that it can create one ecosystem, and of course extension service, because it is important that even though our farmers receive all the inputs, they need to have the knowledge to be able to use it appropriately. Then finally, our Kenya Unified Agriculture Data Platform. This is a very simplified a process flow of what we're building. Essentially, think of it as a spider with all its legs, and its integration of all the services. We believe in competition. We believe that we need to encourage service providers to continuously provide, innovate, and provide the best service that they can to our small-scale farmers, as well as the large producers. But in the end, it's about access to market and reduction of poverty. So we're working with Microsoft to develop the Agriculture Digital Transformation Roadmap. And this is the unpacking of our strategy towards implementable chunks or steps in terms of ensuring that we meet our use case demands and our use case requirements in a very integrated and open data platform. We've currently finalized the data governance structure to ensure that we maintain the integrity of the data, as well as people's users' privacy, but also our farmers' privacy, because part of the farmer registry will be a module within this unified agriculture data platform. And it's a cloud-based architecture because we're trying to get our government to move away from on-premise and very hard investment in infrastructure, but towards ensuring that there's cloud provisioning across the country as we expand telecom services and availability. Finally, I felt if I presented just what we've managed to get done in the context of COVID, in the context of very tight fiscal spaces, it needed to be highlighted that we have to build resilience in our digital interventions. And that's towards the sustainability of all those. All the 6 that I've highlighted are proof of concepts. They had very specific timelines, very specific budgets. I didn't mention every single service that we have implemented. I know that Kauro will be presenting to this in this webinar soon, illustrating the KOAP, the 1 million farmer platform, as well as our big data platform, which is now going to be used towards being our single place for all digital interventions for agriculture to ensure that we use economies of scale and minimize cost and replication. So for us, I needed to also illustrate our challenges and some of the solutions that we've seen. So in government, and in fact, even in looking at the service provision at the ground, at the grassroots for our small scale farmers, there is a current shortage of IT or ICT related skills. So we require both retooling and increased collaboration with the private sector to ensure that that knowledge is passed on, and we can have the best practice, even in ministry and even in government, as much as we may not be the doers or the implementers of some of these programs. It's important that we understand what is going on the ground. We need to create an enabling environment. So as much as steering committees and response teams are available, they are only temporary. And there needs to be a more comprehensive enabling environment with our ICT counterparts, our private partners, which include both the private sector and our development partners, to ensure that we can create a fostering environment to ensure that we continue to replicate the digital tools and scale them to all members of society that require it. Collaboration partnerships, longer-term partnerships and collaborative interventions are required to support continued digitization and data automation within the sector. As I mentioned, as a devolved function, the ministry supports policy development. We do some level of implementation, but a lot more of it is at county level. And we need to ensure that the data is continuously made available, either through our private sector partners by integrations of services, or just data automation through county level. I'm almost at the end, Lisa. Then innovation is deploying more flexible engagement to allow through flow of innovations and innovators to and within government. And then finally, sustainability, resource availability and realigning of our budgets towards creating a robust digitally enabled work conducive of a data-driven policy environment is necessary for us to be able to use, consume, and then process the data for it to make sense for the long run. Thank you.
Tule, I'm regularly inspired by the initiatives of the Kenyan government, but to see you as a tech innovator and tech leader here in Africa, helping the government guide the entire sector through agricultural transformation and digital technology is truly inspiring. And I know that the UN Food Systems Summit in 2021 is looking at Kenya as a pace setter. And I know what a huge part of that you are, and we look forward to continuing to support your work moving forward. So thank you so much for joining us. I would like to switch gears slightly, and I'll go ahead and share my screen again to the celebration part of our opening plenary, and essentially to share with you that at the end of this cycle of AgriFin programming, after working with more than 150 partners, we felt that we wanted to mark the achievement, that we wanted to recognize the achievement of many of our partners across 12 different award categories. The first, which I will announce tonight, I'm very excited, is around impact for farmers, building income, productivity, and resilience. And then across the rest of them, you'll see uses of digital data, sustainable scale of innovation, farmer capability solutions, financial inclusion, last mile, market access, impact for women, building regional digital ecosystems, leadership in public-private partnerships, and COVID and desert locust response. And finally, one of the core topics for us moving forward for the next 4 years, climate smart farming and advisory. So after this session, all of the awards will go live. We have a range of videos from the members of our advisory council at AgriFin and our Core donor group are going to be making the specific awards on our awards tab on the website, on the virtual portal. So I encourage you to go as soon as this is over, and you can see who has won across all of the topics and award areas. But I'm very fortunate because I get to make the first announcement. So award number 1 in Impact for Farmers, building income, productivity, and resilience. I'd like to make this award to 3 of our partners. All of these winners are exemplars of the rapid iteration and fail fast approach that AgriFin believes is so important to drive real innovation and impact to scale for farmers. All of these companies are longstanding AgriFin partners, so we know them very well. We made these awards as a collaborative team, so more than 20 of us looking across the categories. And we've been so impressed with these 3 organizations and how they have approached the services to farmers, technology, expansion, sustainability, financing, and so many other factors. But what's really important about these 3 organizations is they have demonstrated clear impacts for farmers, even though they're radically different companies. So with no more ado, I need a drum roll. The Academy Awards apparently last night didn't have a drum roll, and that was a big deal. So we'll try to incorporate it moving forward. The AgriFin Awards for Farmer Impact go to DigiFarm, Hello Tractor, and Sun Culture. For Sun Culture, for their proven success in bringing solar irrigation to smallholder farmers and proven impact. For Hello Tractor, for leading on mechanization and continuing to innovate to make sure that mechanization is accessible for smallholder farmers while they expand all across Africa. Please do look at their impact review, at their impact study on our website. And finally, to DigiFarm, who has registered over 1.4 million farmers for bundles of services here in Kenya, and worked so hard across their product roadmap to make sure it's accessible to women and to keep adding services that make a difference for farmers. So congratulations to our winners. And then I guess I'll just go ahead and invite all of you to again look at ALE as the networking event that it has always been. This is the first time we've ever done this virtually. One of our favorite things about ALE is to bring organizations together, bring our partners together, bring all kinds of people together for the conversation. So we specifically developed the portal to facilitate networking. As you go, you'll see there's a networking tab and encourage you to reach out to people. There's also a marketplace tab, and over 150 companies have included information in the marketplace tab. So please do go and have a look at the marketplace and the networking tabs. If you have any technology-driven issues in reaching the sessions and engaging on the platform, go to the networking tab and look for Abby and Elena, who are organizing this on our behalf and doing a great job, and they can sort you out. Also, please go and download our social networking pack. And feel free to forward any of the information that comes across on social networking. So I want to just go ahead and launch the 5th annual AgriFin annual learning event, and to say our early thanks to our speakers. Huge thanks to UNSGSA Special Advocate for Inclusive Finance and Development, Queen Maxima. Thank you to you and your team for all the time and effort that you put into joining this opening plenary. Many thanks to our new CEO at AgriFin, at Mercy Corps, Jada Doyen Mckenna. We're so glad to have you with us. And thank you to Tula Linnea and the ATO, Government of Kenya, for your incredible efforts and for spending the time with us here now. We'd also like to thank our donors. We'd like to thank the MasterCard Foundation for your incredible faith in this 6-year adventure. And I think that it has reaped the rewards that we hoped that it would. Thank you to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for the extra push on reaching our evidence points and really defining what works for farmers. We'd like to also thank the research partners at Dahlberg, at Busara, and 60 Decibels. It was a difficult run over this year, and to our brave partners who've been part of not only innovating in technology, but also measuring the impact and being very transparent on the results. So with that, I'll officially open our event right on time and invite you to join the rest of the sessions. One thing that I forgot to do was to show you the agenda. So let me go ahead and do that. I got ahead of myself with the evidence. Hang on, I will share the agenda. Hang on, let's see, share screen, here we go. Okay, so I'm going forward to show you the 4 days of ALE, which is usually all smashed into one week. So this time we are able to allow you to choose your sessions. Everything will be recorded. Everything will be on our website, but we encourage you to join live as well. There'll be a lot of working groups and discussion groups, and we look forward to hearing your voice. So today wraps up day one. Tomorrow we'll be going into a number of sessions. So you can see the times on East Africa time, future of rural employment, looking at agricultural data sharing, moonshot technology and climate change, and farmer level impact. And then tomorrow we'll also be looking at the gender impacts. So tomorrow's a big day for impact, and we encourage you to join in. And then on Wednesday, we have an additional round of sessions on digitizing field force, on digital platforms, the full 6 years of impact and what have we learned about ecosystem change, and designing for gender transformation and equity. On our closing day, Thursday, we'll be diving into the core topic for AgriFin moving ahead for the next 4 years, which is addressing the climate change challenge. And then we'll be looking at our OCAP, our global public good on open content for agriculture. We'll be diving into the details on our emergency response for COVID and desert locust. And finally, we'll have an incredible closing plenary. We'll have a pre-recorded address by Bill Gates, and Wanjira Maathai, the Africa Director for the World Resource Institute, will both be our plenary speakers, and an incredible panel. And then we'll wrap it up. So we look forward to your active engagement, and thank you so much for joining the opening plenary. Thank you so much for engaging with AgriFin.